everyone, welcome back to another GCSE Maths lesson with Morale. In this session, we're going to go over some common algebra mistakes made by students and how they can be avoided. So let's dive right in. Okay, so before we begin, let's kind of recap some of the key terminologies and what they each mean to help us throughout the lesson. Now, first things first, simplifying. Now, what we mean by that is combine like terms. So we like to combine like terms to make the equation easier to work with, easier to follow, easier to understand. So for example, if we have something like 3x minus 2x plus 2 is equal to 5, this equation will become much easier to work with once we simplify it, which means collecting like terms. So the variables, the unknowns together, and the constants together. So I can go ahead and subtract this and I get 1x, or otherwise just x, and then I can subtract 2 from both sides so that I have the numbers together, which leaves me with x is equal to 3, right? So that's what we mean by simplify. Second thing is inverse operation, which I kind of went through already just now, but what it means is operations that undo each other, like addition or subtraction. So if I want to get rid of this plus 2 on this side so that I can have the numbers together, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract it. But going on to the next thing with balancing equation, which means whatever you do to one side of the equation, you always do it to the other to maintain that equality. We don't want to change the equation. We want both sides to be equal and to remain equal, right? So if I'm going to subtract 2 from this side, I'm going to do the same to the other side as well. So inverse operation is basically doing the opposite, and balancing equation means doing it to both sides. So if I have something along the lines of 2x is equal to 10, inverse operation, the 2 is multiplied by x. I want to isolate the x. So the inverse, the opposite of multiplying, is dividing it. So if I want to undo it, I'm going to divide it by 2. But because I want the equation to remain balanced, I'm going to do this to both sides. So 2 divided by 2 gives me x, and 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So x is equal to 5, just as an example. Now, common mistakes that we can make. Let's jump right into it. So the very first mistake, very commonly made, is forgetting to balance both sides. So if we're doing the reverse operation, looking at a very simple example on the board, if I'm going to subtract minus 5 from here so that I can isolate x, I must do it to both sides. I cannot just do x is equal to 10. Common mistake. The mistake is I forgot to subtract the 5 from the 10 as well, so my equations are not balanced and I didn't do it to both sides. I didn't do the inverse operation to both sides. Whereas the correct answer would be, when I subtract 5 from this side, I must subtract 5 from this side as well. So the actual value of x is equal to 5, right? So it changes the answers completely. That's the first common mistake. The second common mistake is dropping negative signs. So forgetting to deal with that negative sign. If you have minus 3x is equal to 12, the common mistake would be that students would forget that we're dividing by a negative number. So they would divide both sides by 3 and they would say it's equal to 4. However, that is incorrect. The correct solution would be, yes, we're dividing both sides, but we're dividing both sides by negative 3, right? So if I'm dividing by negative 3, these two will cancel each other out, so I have x on this side, so I've isolated the x, which is what I wanted, but 12 divided by minus 3 gives us minus 4, because a positive divided by a negative is a negative number. So always remembering not to ignore the negative. So if this was equal to minus 12, then it would be 4, because negative 12 divided by negative 3 would be positive. A negative divided by negative gives us a positive. So pay attention to the signs, please. The next mistake would be displacing the decimal point. Now, we have something like this, 0.2x is equal to 4. That means we're going to divide both sides by 0.2, right? So that number doesn't change. If you're not confident with decimals, then that can easily lead to a mistake, right? Just remembering that we're dividing it by 0.2. Quick side revision on how to divide with decimals. So if we're doing 4 divided by 0.2, we never want to divide by a decimal number. We also don't want to change the equation. So I prefer to divide by a whole number rather than a decimal. So to go from 0.2 to 2, what I did is I multiplied that by 10. So in order to make sure that my equation doesn't change, I'm also going to multiply the number on the inside by 10, so then I'm dividing 40 divided by 2. How many times does 2 go into 4? Twice. How many times does 2 go into 0? 0. So 40 divided by 2 is equal to 20. So x here is equal to 20, right? That is the correct answer. However, if you forget and divide 4 by 2, you get 0.5, which is a completely different answer. So be very mindful of decimals. Next mistake would be forgetting to combine like terms. So very, very common mistakes. Common mistake would be, okay, first thing we're going to do is to isolate the x. We're going to do the inverse operation and add 4 to both sides. So we're going to be left with 2x plus 3x is equal to 15. And then once it gets to this point, students will try to solve the x's individually, and we'll take one of the x's to the other side. So they'll have something like 2x is equal to 15 minus 3x. And then at this point, wouldn't know what to do, so we'll leave their answer like that. However, combine like terms. So that first step was correct. This is correct. However, the next step from here would be, okay, we have 2x terms, so we're going to combine them. 2x plus 3x is equal to 5x, which is equal to 15. And then we're going to do the inverse operation where we divide both sides by 5. And then it's equal to x is equal to 3. And that is your correct answer. So always remember, combine the numbers together, combine the variables together. So combine x's together, the numbers together, and then try to solve it. Right. Hope that makes sense. So those were the most common mistakes that I commonly see in exams with students. So remember, balance both sides. Remember, pay attention to your negative signs. Whether you're adding or subtracting or you're dividing by a negative number, pay very close attention to your signs. And your decimal places. So if you're dividing by decimal, practice division of decimals. Don't move the decimal point over without doing it to both numbers. And simplify before solving. So by simplifying, I mean combine like terms. Do not try to solve x's individually if you have more than one variable, you're going to add them together, given that they're both the same. Make sure you keep the equation balanced, so whatever you do to one side, you're going to do to the other. Right. Hope you found that to be useful. Here's an equation on the board, 3x minus 5 is equal to 16 plus x. Have a go at solving that and then share your answers in the comments below and I'll let you know if you got the right answer. And that's it for today's quick tips. If this was helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Share this video with your classmates and don't forget to turn on the notification for our next session. And that's it. Until next time, happy learning. Bye.